teaches at Jamia Millia Central University, and he's also the author, besides Shikwa-e-Hind, of Rise of Saffron Power, Reflections on Indian Politics and Communalism in Post-Colonial India, Changing Contours. He's also the series editor of Indian Elections and Democracy series for Peter Lang Publications, and is currently working on a book on the 2024 elections. He writes columns on contemporary affairs in various newspapers, most particularly The Hindu. I congratulate him on this book, and I would also like to extend a warm welcome to our most distinguished panel. I'm going to make very brief introductions of all of them, and I would request them all thereafter to come up on stage to unwrap the book. Mr. Jawahar Sarkar is the Rajya Sabha MP representing West Bengal. He's a former civil servant and has published numerous articles and research papers on cultural, historical, and anthropological subjects. He has authored the monograph, The Construction of Hindu Identity in Medieval Western Bengal. Professor Manoj Kumar Jha is a member of the Rajya Sabha from Bihar and the national spokesperson of the RJD. He's the author of Riots as Rituals and Transit Talks, Living Through Difficult Times. Priyanka Chaturvedi, a member of the Rajya Sabha from Maharashtra, is also the deputy leader of the Shiv Sena UBT. She has been dedicated to promoting children's education and women's empowerment and health. Mr. Salman Khurshid is a senior advocate, a former Union External Affairs Minister and Law Minister, and a member of the Congress Working Committee. He has taught law at Oxford University and is the author of several books, including Visible Muslim, Invisible Citizen, and At Home in India, The Muslim Saga, and the play Sons of Babur. Mr. Owaisi is not yet here. He is expected soon. But I will still introduce him. He's a president of the AIMIM and a Lok Sabha MP representing Hyderabad, a barrister by profession, having studied at Lincoln's Inn in London. He's known to be a strident voice on minority rights and other subjects. Mr. Shashi Tharoor is a Lok Sabha MP representing Thiruvananthapuram and the author of several best-selling books, including the Sahitya Academy Award-winning An Era of Darkness, Why I'm a Hindu, The Hindu Way, and Ambedkar Alive. I would request Dr. Mujibur Rehman also to come up on stage, and if he could unwrap the books. Sure. Yeah. Okay. While Mr. Owaisi comes, I would like to briefly introduce the book to you. And before I introduce a book, I would like to meander slightly and speak about an art exhibition I visited at the ISC just very recently, and a work that was on display there resonated a lot with me, and I was able to draw some parallels with what Mujibur Rehman was also doing in the book. The photojournalist Ishan Tankha had published a few zines which carried photographs of events he'd been chronicling, protests, riots that are now barely ever covered in the Indian media and very quickly forgotten by the public at large. Essentially what Ishan was doing through the zines was he was provoking an act of remembrance. He was fighting against the erasure of memory. And reading Dr. Rehman's book, I felt similarly. His thought-provoking, very deeply analysis of very specific episodes in the book. In doing so, he reminded us of the status of India's Muslims in the current moment when a wave of majoritarian politics is sweeping across the country, and in doing so, he asserts, makes us realize how urgent it is for the community to assert themselves in the political sphere. The fact that it's about 200 million odd population of Muslims in the country makes this not just an India question, I feel, and as as Rehman has pointed out, it is a very global issue, and how Muslims live in this country and whether they will live as equal citizens with equal rights. Mujibur Rehman has presented and discussed parts of this book at various international conferences and universities, including the British Political Studies Association, at Boston Tufts University and the University of Virginia. And I'm especially pleased at having the members of this panel here today, for it is their thoughts and their actions that will really go on to determine the course of the identity politics that's playing out in the country today, and decide how it would be rewritten, if at all. I would like to, I'm going to stop now because I would like to invite each of them to say a few words on the book and the subject of the book. If Mr. Jawahar Sarkar, if I could kindly request you to come and speak a few words.
Whenever there's an atrocity by Islamic extremists somewhere, some shooting that should not have been done, some killing of, the killing is basically intra-Islam, but never mind. An atrocity is an atrocity, voices must come out. It should not be left to this side to come up and make a statement. That is where we stress upon the commonality of being part of the same India and Hindustan. As someone had said, "Kisi ka baap ka nahi." This is our Hindustan, and we have to re-strategize to keep it this way. We have to reclaim the land we were born into. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for saying that. I would like to request Manojji to come on stage. If I could request the speakers to keep their comments brief. So, thank you.
This book was needed. एक और है एक्सक्लूजन पे आपने थोड़ी बहुत जो किताबों की चर्चा की, बहुत बेहतरीन है. वहाँ पे एक वर्क एक JNU की प्रोफेसर का है. She happens to be my PhD student also, तो कैनवासिंग नहीं कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन उनके किताब का ओमिशन हुआ. गजाला जमील की किताब, वो है नहीं, गजाला वहाब, नॉट गजाला जमील. गजाला के दो सरनेम हो सकते हैं. गजाला वहाब is growing up as Muslim. Gazala Jamil is accumulation by segregation. I think these are the kind of things I wanted to share. Nonetheless, I'll tell you, this book gave me an opportunity to relook. I can see Jia Bhai somewhere here, Jia Salam. You know, the fact of the matter is that if we are able to, I'll just take 1 minute, don't mind. If the fact of the matter is, if we are able to locate the question in centrality, avoid romanticism. I don't have to argue with anyone about what Babur did or Aurangzeb did or Harshvardhan did or whatever. I'm worried about the lynching going on in my society today. And all of us have to speak about it. All of us have to speak about it, have to be on the roads, because success of this entire movement, exclusion of Muslims from public life, including politics, cannot be addressed in isolation, sitting in one room or talking through a single prism. It has to be multi-frame. Thank you very much for writing this. May we get more information. And thank you all. मुझे बुखार था, तो मुझको लगता है कि इस बातचीत के बाद थोड़ा उतरेगा. Thank you so much.
Good evening to all. Thanks for showing up in this evening and listening to our panelists, and there are more distinguished panelists that are still going to talk. We are going to do the unwrapping of the book right now, because I made Asad Sahab two offers, one for Delhi and one for Hyderabad, and he has probably accepted the Hyderabad offer. So he has stayed back, and because he said he had some budget things, so he can't read the whole book and he can't do justice and all of it. So we're going to go ahead and do the wrapping of it. And I'm supposed to say for 5 minutes before the panels these things, but I'm not going to do that. We will immediately go back to our other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj, for those powerful words and for being here despite being ill. And I would like to invite Priyanka ji to come and speak.
That Shaheen Bagh was that movement that ensured and also made the community realize, till y'all do not have political voices, till y'all do not become the stakeholders in policy making decisions, we will all be paying lip service to y'all but not really working on it. So I think Shaheen Bagh movement is not just a movement which petered out. Shaheen Bagh movement was a movement that made us sit up, stand up and realize that the time has come where every single citizen, every single voice needs to be heard, and every person in this country needs to be politically engaged and have a political point of view and a political voice. And only then a change can come. After all, politicians are the ones making the policy. And till y'all are not heard in that system, till y'all are not part of that system, we can continue to pay you lip service and really not have outcomes. So these were my points. I don't want to take too much time, but it was really lovely to be here and to have read your book, a very knowledgeable book. And I think moving forward, we should have such conversations, have political parties, diverse political parties coming, and you all holding us accountable for it, that this is what you all promised us, this is what you speak about the Constitution. What is it that really you all are doing on ground and in the parliament. So thank you so much for having me here and wish you all a good evening.
May I request Mr. Khushi to come and speak about the book?
Thank you very much. Many of you who belong to the Muslim community assume that you know everything about yourself and about people who pretend to speak for you or who wish to speak for you. You believe that you know everything about that. But there are many amongst us all who don't know. Do we know, for instance, that we are shy about speaking on triple talaq? Why? Because we think there is something wrong. Do we really believe that there is something that we are shy of speaking about when we talk about personal law of Islam? Do we know that we are really perturbed about what UCC stands for? I say this to you, but this is not the time for a lecture. I say to you that we have objective answers on each of these issues. But this country and even our well-wishers believe that perhaps we don't have answers. They are generous, they are comforting, they have an outreach, and they would say, just ignore this for a while, it doesn't matter. The point really is, are there shortcomings that are integral to the part of religion, whichever religion is it, and therefore do we need to just cover up? Or is there something, if we delve deeply, that we can with confidence say that this is not true? This is not true. There is nothing about Islam, there is nothing about Hinduism that causes us to be apart. We are pleased to be able to talk about Sufism and Bhakti movement. But Sufism and Bhakti movement can take us a long way, but the Sufism and Bhakti movement doesn't solve our problems of everyday life. Everyday life, we need to understand where we come from and where we are going. And I believe your book points to a lot of directions which are very rewarding and would be very rewarding. But it's the beginning only. It's not the culmination. And I hope that one day you will write a book about the Shikwa having a Jawab-e-Shikwa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khurshid, and Mr. Tharoor. I know you've been taking a lot of notes, so I'm looking forward to what you say.
Perhaps you've been too pessimistic, Mujib. Your narrative appears to assume the continued dominance of the Hindutva majoritarian argument. But as others have pointed out, the 24 elections have given some pause to that. I think you've been too dismissive of Shaheen Bagh. I take Salman's point that those who were in Shaheen Bagh have not done very well since. I speak as I believe the first MP to have actually gone and addressed the grandmothers of Shaheen Bagh in the second week of December. And I have to say that one of the most exciting and important things about that was that the protesters were not just Muslim. It may have begun as that, but throughout the country, in very many different parts of the country, and I myself inaugurated 7 different protest meetings in Kerala alone in the months of December and January. The people there were from all faiths, because what was at stake was this very notion of Indianness. It was not so much a question, after all, who wrote Kagaz Nahi Dikhayenge? It wasn't a Muslim who wasn't going to show his kagaz, right? It was a poet from the so-called majority community. But there was a sense of identification that this cause was a cause for every Indian and not just for the Muslims. I believe that the citizenship principle is what is at stake there, and Shaheen Bagh's lasting value is that it put that front and center in this debate. It is about your rights as citizens of India, and that, if abridged for one section of people, is a threat to everybody. And that is the key principle. Yes, COVID saved the government. Shaheen Bagh finished only because when COVID happened and the entire nation was locked down, Shaheen Bagh could be dismantled. We should not forget that till that very moment, not only was Shaheen Bagh actually alive and kicking and protesting on a daily basis, and people were coming in, there were Sikhs setting up langars there to feed the protesters and all of that, but in every city, every major city across India, and in some not so major cities in my state of Kerala, there were protesters of all backgrounds, echoing the demands of the people of Shaheen Bagh right up to the declaration of the COVID lockdown. I'll conclude with a reference that Mujib himself makes in the concluding chapter to Martin Luther King's famous comment that there is no solution through isolation. And that ultimately would be my appeal and my advice at the same time to my Muslim brothers and sisters. Do not, in the process of articulating the shikwa, understanding the problems that Mujib has so ably delineated, do not isolate yourselves from the rest of the Indian mainstream. There are plenty of us with you. Secular India, whether you like the term or not, or pluralist India, inclusive India, that India is real. You are not alone. There are very, very many of us who are determined to stand with you. And I would even go further and say, as this fight moves on, do not fight for yourselves as Muslims, fight for yourselves as Indians, because it's your rights as Indians that we are all here to defend and protect in defending the secular ideals that this constitution we are all cherishing gave us. So once again, congratulations, Mujibur Rehman, on an excellent book, and my very, very best wishes for its success. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. And a really warm welcome to Mr. Owaisi. I'm so glad you could make it here. If you could just come and say a few words.
Thankful, sir, for writing this book. I hope that people will read your book. I hope the secular leaders will read this book. You have given you have shown a chart wherein MIM contested in Uttar Pradesh, and we could not win. But fine, you're absolutely right. That is the truth. But the question is, how did even in Uttar Pradesh we could not get equal number of other population-wise Muslims getting elected to the Lok Sabha? Yes, the victory of Ghazipur is a fantastic victory. That is a victory of secularism. The victory of a Muslim candidate from Tamil Nadu, that is a victory of secularism. But apart from that, the other MPs which have got elected, in that particular Lok Sabha constituency, Muslims are around about 38% and above. So no secular party can really take credit for getting them elected. And I hope that you've written that one day a Muslim should become India's Prime Minister. My dream is that my dream is that someday a Muslim woman should become India's Prime Minister. And a hijab wearing. Thank you.
We will shortly start the Q&A, but since there are so many things have been said about the book, I'll try to be as brief as possible in my comments, just as part of clarification and not elaborate on all those points. My initial plan was to hold this discussion, book launch at India International Center, and when I asked International Center, and the room that they provided was very small, and then I thought somebody might, looking at the panel, tweet that some secular politicians were planning to hand over Indian National Center to Muslims. So I thought I should shift it, and then we shifted to this place. So I'm glad that it was a good decision. It still looks inadequate I'm very happy about it, that all of you came here. I will be very brief in terms of comments. I'm thankful to all the compliments and nice things that all of you said about the book and the argument, and I would urge sincerely all of you to, those who read books, to read it carefully. My own sense is this: those who read this book more than once, you would probably arrive at a conclusion, and a lot of the skepticism that you gather in the beginning might not remain there. So far as this book was written in the context of the rise of Hindu nationalism, so therefore it is in this context that all the narratives are developed. So I do accept that I haven't done complete justice to the southern chapter, as Dr. Tharoor has said. But I decided that I would include a separate chapter which delayed the books by almost 8 months. And I do think at some point I plan to write Muslims of South, a completely new book, given that particular significance of that particular reason about it. I have been told by several panelists about that I have not been conducive about the Shaheen Bagh and all of it. Well, from the vantage point that I was thinking about it, that the Muslim population of India today is 200 million, which is more than the population, as I mentioned, than France and Germany put together. Imagine France and Germany, people of those two countries decide to organize a protest movement, and compare that the protest movement that we saw by Indian Muslims in Shaheen Bagh. It is from that point of view I found that the potential of the community in terms of launching a movement, in terms of sustaining a movement, I did see a big qualitative difference. It did not look to me that this was a movement of 200 million people. So from that point of view, I had slighted that part of it. If you, we are standing on the 6th of August in 2024. On the one side, we see Dhaka burning. On the other side, we see a country which is in chaos called Pakistan. And if you trace all of that, if you look back, and in our country, all the concerns that the speakers have raised, imagine for a second, or think about it, that people who really fought for this freedom, did they really imagine this particular region or this particular country, or the Indians of that time would really face this moment? If you look at undivided India as a thought experiment, if there would have been no partition, the population of India in undivided India would have been roughly around 700 million. So think of an India, undivided India, with 700 million Muslims and 18 million Hindus, and now I leave it to you to speculate what kind of politics that would have happened in this country. I'm quite sure, certainly from the point of view of Muslim situations, the politics would have been quite different. So, no doubt that the partition did play a significant role and has harmed Indian Muslims in a substantive, irreversible manner. And that has given a permanent stake to Hindu right to attack Muslim loyalty and Muslim identity endlessly. Now, I just wanted to say 2 sentences on partition. If you review the entire literature on partition, the conclusion that arrive at that there was never a consensus among Muslims, either elites or masses, or those who existed in between, the middle class and the rest, about Pakistan. That's beside the reason why Jinnah called it a moth-eaten Pakistan. There was Muslim resistance, that was there among Muslim elites, that was there in Muslim masses. Somehow or other in the narrative of our country, that particular thing has not been adequately acknowledged. Likewise, there is no consensus about Hindu Rashtra among Hindu elites, among Hindu masses, and among Hindu middle class. And I think that is reflected in the presentations that's being made by the panelists. This assumption that people who vote for BJP are supporting Hindutva or Hindu Rashtra is a misleading assumption, and I have serious doubts about the numbers of people who really believe in this ideology and vote for BJP. There are a lot of people who vote for BJP without believing in those ideologies for various reasons that you will see in my book, Rise of Saffron Power, or in the next book that I'm working on. Now on this, on the last point I want to say, and then I will open it, on the question of reasonableness of upper caste that Professor Jha raised. Well, most of us who read Indian politics, study Indian politics, we do see that there is a significant difference in the evolution of Indian democracy. Look at it from any point of view, from 1947 till today. And the dividing line is definitely late 1980s, the emergence of BJP. If you say that upper castes were as communal as they are today, or had similar views as they were between 80s to 40s, then you are arguing that there is no difference between the India with the emergence of BJP and the India prior to BJP. So I'm not saying that Indian secularism was perfect. My argument is that the Muslims as a minority community's rights are best safeguarded in a secular polity, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned from that experiment that Nehru started till late 80s, and there are mistakes also were made, and there are a lot of things to be learned from that. The question is that whether there is a possibility to revive that secular polity or not. So with these comments, I'd like to conclude my thoughts. Our Prime Minister had made a statement in the wake of Ukraine war, which is widely appreciated, that this is not an era of war. Whenever there is a discussion on war, since there are many diplomats sitting here, this is quite widely appreciated. The fact is, this is also not the era of hate speeches, and this is something that we should not expect Mr. Putin to tell our Prime Minister. This is something that we have to say to him. The things that I have not mentioned in the book that I would like to share with you is this. My own understanding is Muslim conditions are going to worsen in the post-Modi era of BJP or Hindu right politics, unless there is a real secular pushback from the secular politics of various broad coalition. Thank you. Then we can have a Q&A.